Lennox Lewis turned his boxing fortune into an insane empire that stretches far beyond the ring. From luxury homes and businesses to major investments across multiple countries, Lewis owns more than most fans realize, but his wildest investment may be a piece of an entire city. Let me break it down. Let's start with the number that makes everything else in this story possible. Lennox Lewis retired from boxing with a career purse total that stood at least $108.4 million during his career. That's not sponsorship money. That's not appearance fees. That's just what promoters paid him to get in the ring. The single biggest night of his career came against Mike Tyson. His matchup with Mike Tyson in 2002 drew a then-record 1.95 million pay-per-view audience, earning Lewis millions of dollars in PPV bonuses and the guaranteed purse. Different outlets land on slightly different totals for that single fight, with some placing his take from the Tyson bout as high as $34 million once bonuses were added to the guarantee. Either way, it was the richest single night of his career, and it came at a point where he was already one of the wealthiest men in the sport. He didn't need Tyson to get rich, though. He earned a combined $25 million from his two bouts with Evander Holyfield alone. Those two fights against Holyfield weren't just paydays, they were the fights that made him the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, a distinction that very few boxers in history have ever held. Here's the thing about Lewis's career that separates him from a lot of heavyweight champions who came before and after him. He didn't fight for headlines, he fought for leverage. Every title defense was also a negotiation for the next contract, and by the time he walked away in 2003, he'd beaten nearly everyone worth beating. He'd avenged the two losses on his record against Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman, turning what could have been career-ending defeats into redemption stories that only added to his drawing power. Even the fighters he never got in the ring with wanted a piece of him. Vince McMahon, running World Wrestling Entertainment at the height of its popularity, reportedly offered Lewis £5 million to cross over into professional wrestling. Vince McMahon, the head of World Wrestling Entertainment, reportedly offered Lewis £5 million in 2002 to enter the professional wrestling business. He turned it down. Boxing was still paying him enough, and he had bigger plans for his money than a run in the squared circle under a different set of rules. By the time he hung up the gloves, Lewis had banked earnings that most retired athletes can only dream about. Career totals vary depending on which purses and bonuses you count, but the widely cited figure for his fight winnings alone sits at £84 million across his professional run. That's the base. That's the foundation. He built everything else on top of. And this is where the story stops being about boxing and starts being about real estate, businesses, and a footprint that stretches across entire cities. Because unlike a lot of champions who cashed their last purse and quietly disappeared, Lewis took that money and started buying, not just houses, land, stakes in companies, positions inside entire planned communities that function almost like small towns of their own. He picked up homes in country after country. Lennox Lewis has bought properties in America, Canada, and the UK. And he didn't stop at a single house in each place. In Hertfordshire, England, he built a base close to where his career took off. In Florida, he built a life around the sunshine and water he says calms him. And in Jamaica, the country his parents came from, he built something that goes beyond a vacation home, a foothold inside one of the most exclusive resort communities in the Caribbean. That Jamaican property is where the piece of a city idea really takes shape, and it's worth slowing down on. It's not a random villa on a random beach. It sits inside the Trial Golf Club estate in Hanover, a gated development so large and so self-contained that residents effectively live inside their own private town, complete with its own golf course, its own security, and its own economy of staff, landscapers, and service workers who depend on the residents for their livelihood. Lennox Lewis's primary residence is the luxurious mansion known as Lion's Lair, located in the Trial Golf Club Resort in Hanover, Jamaica. This prestigious resort is home to properties valued upwards of £4 million. Think about that for a second. This isn't just a house sitting inside a neighborhood. It's a stake inside a whole self-sufficient community, one where the going rate for a single property is measured in the millions of pounds, and where owning in means you're part of the tiny group of people who effectively decide what that patch of Jamaica looks like, who lives there, and how it operates. That's about as close as a single individual gets to owning a piece of an actual town without buying up a literal municipal deed. And Lewis didn't stop there. He also picked up a high-end office complex thousands of miles away, back in London, a commercial holding that puts him on the other side of the landlord-tenant relationship, in one of the most expensive commercial property markets on the planet. Lewis has also ventured into the world of business, with a keen eye for real estate development. He has invested in several properties, including a luxurious estate in Los Angeles and a high-end office complex in London. So already, before we even get into his business ventures, his commentary career, or his newer investments, you've got a picture forming. A fighter who made over $100 million with his fists, then spread that money across 3 continents in the form of land, mansions, and commercial buildings. That's not spending, that's building. Let's slow the story down and really map out where Lewis's money physically lies, because the spread is bigger than most people realize. Start with Jamaica. We've already covered the Trial Estate, but it's worth understanding why that particular piece of land means so much to him beyond the investment angle. Lewis was born in London to Jamaican parents, and that connection to the island runs through his whole business story. The mansion he built there wasn't bought off a listing. It was designed from scratch. He brought in an architect from Chicago specifically because he didn't want one of the colonial-style houses that dominate the area. He wanted something original, something that blended indoors and outdoors, something with a pool that appeared to drop straight off the mountainside into the Caribbean Sea below. Lewis says when he came looking for houses, he saw a lot of colonial houses along the way, and he didn't like the idea of buying one. So he went and got his architect from Chicago to help him design the indoor-outdoor themed mansion. That house sits on a hillside that looks out over Montego Bay, in a resort where property values start around £4 million and only go up from there. Owning inside that gate means Lewis isn't just a homeowner in Jamaica. He's one of the people whose presence and investment keeps that entire private development economically viable. Golf caddies, security staff, groundskeepers, chefs, an entire microeconomy inside that resort depends on residents like him staying invested. That's the closest thing to owning a stake in a city that a single mansion purchase can get you. Now shift to Florida. Lewis has talked openly about why he settled in Miami over any of the other cities he could have picked. It wasn't the nightlife or the glamour, it was the sunshine and the water, which he's described as calming influences in his life. I'm a very heavy person when it comes to sunshine, and that type of lifestyle, Miami gives me that. We are surrounded by sunshine and water, which are 2 calming factors in my life. He didn't want to keep renting hotel rooms every time he visited the region either. So he built. The Miami mansion is valued in the 8 figures, and it sits alongside a garage that reportedly holds more than 7 luxury vehicles, including a Rolls-Royce and a Ferrari. Then there's Hertfordshire, back in England, a home base close to his boxing roots and part of a UK property portfolio that, when combined with everything else, has been estimated at around £95 million. Lewis, 46, has homes in Hertfordshire, Jamaica, and Florida. His property takes him to £95 million. That figure alone tells you this isn't a man who bought one nice house and called it a day. That's a property empire spread across 3 countries, each piece chosen deliberately, each one adding to a portfolio that keeps compounding in value years after his last fight. And then there's the commercial side, the office complex in London, that puts him in a completely different category from most retired athletes who just buy homes to live in. Office buildings in central London are some of the most valuable commercial real estate on earth, leased to companies who need addresses in one of the world's biggest financial hubs. Owning a stake in one of those buildings means collecting rent from businesses that operate inside the literal engine room of a global city. That's not a lifestyle purchase. That's Lewis positioning himself as a landlord to the city itself. Put all of that together. A private mountainside estate inside a self-contained Jamaican resort town. A beachside mansion in one of America's most valuable coastal cities. A family home in the English countryside, and a commercial office tower in the heart of London. And you start to see why people describe his holdings as owning a piece of a city, rather than just owning a few nice houses. It's not one property in one place. It's a footprint stamped across multiple cities on multiple continents, each piece chosen with a different purpose. Some for living, some for legacy, some purely for return on investment. There's also a quieter layer to this that doesn't get talked about as much. Lewis has kept homes going in different countries simultaneously, rather than consolidating into one primary base, which keeps him connected to multiple property markets at once, instead of being tied to the fortunes of a single city. He lives comfortably but low-key, spending time at homes in different countries. That spread isn't an accident. It's the same instinct that shaped his boxing career. Never put everything on one punch. Never let one single asset carry all the risk. Compare that to how a lot of boxers of his era handled their money. Fortunes made in the ring have a well-documented habit of disappearing within a few years of retirement, usually because they get poured into one flashy purchase after another with no long-term plan behind them. Lewis went the other way. Every property he picked up served a purpose. A home to live in, a home to rent out, a commercial asset to collect income from, or a piece of land inside a community, valuable enough that just being a member of it counts as a financial position on its own. That's the property side of the empire. But real estate is only one leg of the stool. The other legs, his business ventures, his media career, and his newer bets on emerging industries, are just as important to understanding how a boxer's fortune turned into something that still grows today. Once Lewis stopped fighting, he didn't stop working. He just changed what work looked like. And one of the biggest, steadiest sources of income in his post-boxing life has been sitting behind a microphone. Boxing commentary doesn't pay like a title fight, but it pays consistently, year after year, and Lewis has made it a real second career. He owns more than 7 luxury vehicles in his garage and has earned around $20 million over the last 10 years as a boxing commentator. $20 million over a decade from analyzing other people's fights. That's not pocket change, and it's the kind of steady, recurring income that most retired fighters never manage to replicate once the purses stop coming. Alongside the commentary work, Lewis has held a stake in the sport that made him famous, staying connected to boxing as a business rather than just a memory. He also has a significant stake in a boxing promotion company, as well as investments in various businesses. That's a smart move for anyone who understands the sport from the inside. Promotion is where the real long-term money in boxing lives, far more than any single fighter's purse. Because a promoter profits off every card, every fighter, every pay-per-view, not just their own performances. Then there's the side of Lewis that most fans don't associate with a heavyweight champion at all: his involvement in Marley Coffee, the brand built around Bob Marley's family legacy. In the feature interview, Lewis, who recently turned 50 years old, talks about his passions, his current projects, his eloquent home in Jamaica, his involvement with Marley Coffee, his love for the game of chess, and his commitment to put Canadian boxers on the world stage. It's a small detail, but it fits the pattern. Lewis gravitating toward Jamaican-rooted brands and businesses that connect back to his heritage, the same instinct that pushed him to build that mountainside estate, rather than settle for a colonial house someone else had already designed. The chess angle is worth pulling on too, because it says something about how Lewis thinks about long-term strategy versus short-term flash. He's a devoted amateur chess player, and he didn't just play the game for fun. He funded an after-school chess program for kids who didn't have access to it otherwise. Lewis, a devoted amateur chess player, funded an after-school chess program for underprivileged children, one of whom went on to win a chess scholarship at Tennessee Technical College. That's not a business venture in the traditional sense, but it tells you how Lewis's mind works, thinking several moves ahead, planning for outcomes years down the line, rather than chasing immediate wins. He's also dipped into entertainment in ways that added to his brand without demanding much of his time. He appeared on a hip-hop album early in his post-fighting years, and he took a cameo role in a major Hollywood heist film. Lewis performed on the Train of Thought debut album by the American hip-hop group Reflection Eternal, which was released in 2000. He played a small cameo role in the 2001 film Ocean's 11, starring Brad Pitt, George Clooney, and Julia Roberts. Small moves like that don't move the needle on a 9-figure fortune, but they keep a name relevant, and relevance is currency in the business of being a former champion. It's what keeps sponsorship offers coming, keeps commentary contracts renewing, and keeps doors open that would otherwise close the moment a fighter stops competing. There's also a strange bit of life imitating art buried in that film cameo. In the film, he fights Vladimir Klitschko, a scenario that played out in real life when Lewis defeated Klitschko in the final fight of his career. Except in real life, it was Klitschko's brother Vitaly he actually beat in his last professional bout. A fitting, almost scripted way to close out a career that had already blurred the line between sport and business more than once. Underneath all of these individual ventures is a broader philosophy that Lewis has stuck to since retiring, spreading his money across completely different categories so that a downturn in one area never threatens the whole structure. Boxing promotion, commentary, coffee, film, chess programs, real estate, none of these industries move together. When one slows down, the others keep the fortune stable. That's the same discipline that made him a 3-time heavyweight champion, instead of a one-hit wonder, who lost his title the first time a tougher opponent showed up. It also explains something that shows up again and again in how people who track his finances describe him. He didn't blow through his money the way plenty of world-class athletes have. Many heavyweights blew through bigger paydays. Lennox Lewis did the opposite. He controlled his spending, listened to good advisors, and stayed away from chaos. That is why his wealth now looks solid and secure, not fragile. That discipline is the connective tissue running through every business decision we've covered so far. The coffee investment, the promotion stake, the commentary contracts, even the chess program. Every single one of them fits into a pattern of a man who treats money the same way he treated an opponent in the ring, patiently, strategically, and always with an eye on the long game. But the story doesn't stop with legacy businesses and old-school investments. In the last several years, Lewis has moved into industries that didn't even exist, in a legal, regulated form when he was still fighting, and that's where his empire gets a lot more interesting. Here's where the story shifts from legacy money to genuinely modern bets, because Lewis didn't just sit on real estate and commentary checks. He started chasing the same kind of ground floor opportunity that made his boxing career so lucrative in the first place, getting in early before everyone else understood the value. The clearest example is his move into the cannabis industry. Canada had already legalized recreational cannabis nationwide, becoming the first G7 country to do so, and the medical side of that market was expanding fast. Since retirement, Lennox has continued his success as an investor into startups and burgeoning industries, which led him to investing substantially into the Canadian company New Maple Holdings Limited. New Maple is a rapidly expanding private parent company of Canadian licensed producer Canwe Growers and the technical consulting company New Maple Consulting. This wasn't a small symbolic check either. Reports at the time described it as a serious commitment of his money into the space. The British boxing legend has invested a large chunk of his fortune into a Canadian company growing medical weed. And he wasn't just writing a check and walking away. He took on an actual working role inside the company, applying what he knows about sports recovery to a product line aimed at treating exactly the kind of injuries a heavyweight boxer understands better than almost anyone alive. In addition to his substantial investment, Lewis will also help New Maple as an executive advisor, focusing on the opportunities in his own expert field of sports recovery. Explaining the move himself, Lewis pointed to the range of conditions the product could potentially help with: concussions, insomnia, old sports injuries. It's great to be part of a team that will bring a range of medicinal cannabis products to many people worldwide to help with ailments such as concussions, insomnia, and old sports injuries to cancer. Coming from a man who spent 14 years absorbing punches from some of the biggest heavyweights in history, that's not a marketing line, that's personal experience talking. It's worth noting he wasn't the only heavyweight champion to see the opportunity. Mike Tyson, his old rival, and the man he beat in one of the most watched fights in pay-per-view history, had already built his own presence in the legal cannabis space years earlier. His former boxing rival, Mike Tyson, has been in the legal weed game for at least the last 2 years. Ironic, too, that Lennox Lewis remains just one of a handful of boxers to ever beat Tyson. Two men who once tried to knock each other out on pay-per-view ended up chasing the same emerging market years later. Proof that great fighters often make the same kind of calculated, opportunistic business moves outside the ring that made them dangerous inside it. The cannabis bet wasn't a one-off either. Lewis has continued making targeted investments into startups well into the current decade, treating his fortune less like a pile of cash to protect and more like a portfolio to actively grow. Records show him putting money into a company called Vigo through a seed funding round, alongside other investors years after the cannabis deal. That investment eventually turned into a portfolio exit, meaning the company was acquired and Lewis's stake paid out. 2 investments. One already cashed out successfully, a small but telling sign that his post-boxing career as an investor isn't just about parking money in safe real estate. He's still actively hunting for the next opportunity, the same way he once hunted for the next contender. That instinct, get in early, back people who know the industry better than you do, and stay hands-on enough to actually add value rather than just cash sitting on a balance sheet, runs all the way back to how he approached his boxing career. He didn't just wait for opponents to come to him. He picked fights that built his resume, avenged the ones he lost, and positioned himself for the biggest paydays the sport could offer. Investing in an emerging cannabis company and a startup years later isn't a departure from that mindset. It's the exact same mindset, just applied to a different arena. And this is really the piece of the story that separates Lewis's financial life from a lot of former champions who made similar money in the ring. Plenty of great fighters retired with tens of millions of dollars and watched it evaporate through bad advice, extravagant spending, or simply never diversifying beyond what they already knew. Lewis did the opposite at every turn. Real estate across 3 continents, a stake in the business side of his own sport, a media career worth tens of millions, and now positions in industries that barely existed when he was still competing. Every layer added to the last instead of replacing it. That brings the story to where things stand for Lewis today. A fortune that's not just intact decades after his final fight, but one that keeps expanding, keeps diversifying, and keeps adding new pieces to a footprint that already spans mansions, resort communities, office towers, and startup equity across multiple countries. So where does all of this leave Lennox Lewis right now? Decades removed from his final fight against Vitaly Klitschko. The numbers vary depending on who's counting, which is normal for any fortune built across multiple countries, multiple currencies, and multiple types of assets that don't get valued the same way twice. Most trackers land on a net worth somewhere in the 9-figure range, with widely repeated estimates putting him around $140 million, and some more recent assessments suggesting his total holdings could be closer to $180 million. Once you factor in appreciation on his property portfolio and his newer investment stakes, most estimates put his net worth at around $140 million, with some newer reports suggesting it could be closer to $180 million. This level of wealth places him among the richest boxers in history. What's clear, regardless of which exact figure you use, is that the fortune isn't sitting still. It's spread across boxing purses that were banked decades ago, a commentary career that's paid him tens of millions since, a stake in the business side of the sport itself. Real estate scattered from the English countryside to the Jamaican coast, to the American Sunbelt, to the heart of London's commercial district, and a growing list of startup and industry bets that stretch from cannabis production to venture-backed tech. That spread is exactly why the framing of owning a piece of a city fits so well. It's not one house. It's not one deal. It's dozens of individual positions layered on top of each other, across different cities, different industries, and different decades of his life. A mansion inside a private Jamaican resort community, large enough to function like its own town. An office building generating income in one of the most expensive commercial markets on the planet. A beachside estate in a city he chose specifically because it made him feel calm. And a countryside home in England, tying him back to where his boxing journey began. Beyond the money itself, Lewis has used a portion of his fortune to build something that outlasts any single balance sheet. The Lennox Lewis Foundation, which channels resources toward charitable causes rather than just personal accumulation. He is also a philanthropist and has established the Lennox Lewis Foundation, which supports a range of charitable causes. That foundation, paired with the chess program he quietly funded for kids who otherwise wouldn't have had access to it, rounds out a picture of a man who treats wealth as something to be deployed strategically, not just displayed. It's worth stepping back and putting the whole arc of this story side by side. A kid who left London for Canada at 12 years old, won Olympic gold representing his adopted country, turned professional, and spent 14 years compiling a resume that made him the last undisputed heavyweight champion many fans can name off the top of their head. He walked away from the sport with well over $100 million in career purses, and instead of treating that as the finish line, he treated it as starting capital. From there, the pattern repeats over and over across this story. Diversify. Don't concentrate. Get in early on things other people overlook. Keep enough properties and positions spread across enough places that no single downturn can touch the whole structure at once. That approach turned a boxing fortune into a genuine multi-country holding. Homes that double as investment-grade real estate. A stake in a boxing promotion business. Tens of millions from a broadcasting career. Ownership inside industries that barely existed when he first turned professional, and a foothold inside a private Jamaican community, exclusive enough that being a member of it is its own kind of civic standing. That's the empire. Not a single skyscraper with his name on it. Not a literal city hall with his signature on the deed. But a footprint spread wide enough, deep enough, and diversified enough across enough different cities that calling it a piece of a city isn't much of a stretch at all. Every mansion, every office lease, every commentary check, every startup stake adds another brick to a structure. That's been under construction since long before his last fight ended, and based on everything he's done since, it doesn't look like construction is finished yet.